Hello everyone, back for another video. This time I'm going to be talking about my current project. I'm doing Dracula, the classic horror story. How did I start? So I made a list of all of the real classics that are clearly in the public domain. Went through the list till I saw something that interested me. Came down to either War of the Worlds or Dracula. War of the Worlds I think it was my favorite book when I was growing up, but I've done a lot of science fiction lately, so I kind of wanted to go into horror more. So it took me about a month to get into working on this project. Don't know really what the block was, what was slowing me up. Drew out the first couple of pages. There's a lot of build-up in the classic stories. The first chapter follows our initial main character, Jonathan, as he's traveling across Transylvania. He's traveling from London to Transylvania to do a property purchase for the Count. He's doing it for a lawyer friend of his. I kind of wanted to really go into detail, give a sense of the different countries that he was traveling across. I think that was an important part of the original story, showing how much distance and how long it took to travel. In the era it was set in, it's a lot different than today, where you can get across the planet within, how long does it take to fly the other side? Probably about 24 hours you can go to the other side of the globe. So for character design, I do kind of the opposite of traditional comics, where you first do the sketch and you figure out how they look. I generally come up with the character appearance as I'm penciling and drawing the story. In contrast to that, I put a lot of thought into designing the costume, since humans kind of look the same when you're drawing them on a piece of paper. So I strive to find an exact look for them. You know what each character looks like as a defined image, so you can pick them out more easily. Usually I draw out an image of a figure, and then I draw maybe 5 to 10 different variations of a costume. And lately I've been asking people which is their favorite. And usually I take the favorite one and add all the bits and bobs from the other designs that I like. So it had actually been a really long time since I read Dracula or watched the movies. I remembered the general outline of the story. Actually, I didn't remember it that well. So it was kind of a surprise going into it. I started out the first chapter as the character is traveling to Transylvania without really catching myself up on it, so I could kind of get a sense of mystery, because the character himself didn't know what he was getting into. So I wanted to talk about adaptations. For Dracula, initially I wanted to put my own spin on it to make it my own story, but as I got into it, I changed my mind. I kind of wanted to do a Nosferatu spin on it, have Dracula take different forms throughout the story, and finally reveal him at the end to be that kind of more monstery looking version of Dracula. But as I started in on it, I decided that I want to keep really close to the source material. Originally I was thinking about starting it out flipping the gender roles at the beginning, because arguably I'm much better at drawing female characters than male. And then I was thinking of flipping it back later on when his fiancée is the main character of the story. But I decided to go with the original, the way the original creator wrote it. Similar, when I did The Call of Cthulhu, I kept exactly to the format of that story. I took it as a learning opportunity. Cthulhu, the way it was written, it was set out as a mystery and built up to it. I don't do that. That is completely alien to my sense of writing. Specifically the last part of Cthulhu. He tells the same story through three different points of view and adds more information each time, which is completely the opposite of the way I think and process. So it was interesting for me writing it out that way. Lastly, I want to talk about comparison for the Winnie the Pooh version I did. I completely strayed from the source material. Other than the fact that there's bees in the story, it has basically nothing to do with the source material. So when I started on that book, I purchased the original book that's in the public domain, kind of did an outline of all the chapters. Since it's a children's book, there isn't very much story per each page, like 4 or 5 lines. I took the general story beats and used that as the A story. For the B story, I went into religious mythology and picked out a story that I liked and used that to flesh out the backstory for the character. I knew I wanted to keep the original feel of the story intact, like where Christopher Robin oddly lives in a forest with a bunch of animals, which in a realistic setting doesn't make any sense, and a bear is his best friend. So I started thinking as the bear is a caretaker, and my art style is negative space, so it definitely leads to darker imagery. So logically, with the religious background, I wanted to do a demon bear, but I didn't want to go like completely evil on it. I was taken back to like the early creation myths with fallen angels, and there was a group of angels who left paradise voluntarily. It varies from version to version. In the general beats, they fall in love with human women and voluntarily leave heaven to be with them. They have families, they build a society. In most versions, it goes bad and destroyed through their own efforts, or they're wiped out by their deity. So I found that would make a good backstory and would explain why there was a giant bear hanging out with a little kid. Yeah, that's funny. Also, it turns out I am unusually good at drawing bears. Not really a skill I thought I would have, but that's interesting. Yeah, okay, that's all I got for you today. Like, comment, and subscribe.